Can you see my screen? Spelling. Yeah, good. Let's go. Yeah, I did. Okay, guys, let's start, guys. Today topic will be authentication together with referencing. Means like there are two ways there are two ways to store related data in MongoDB, right? First way is embedding, and the second way is referencing. I expect you guys to understand how to use embedding, right? Tuesday, no? You do?
What does that mean?
Like there are two ways to store related data. For example, I will open Node here, and so oh wait, what? So for user object, this is a user document, right? And if you have name here, for example, name is khóa, and then you have something called address. So inside address, you have multiple fields. For example, city, Ho Chi Minh, country, Vietnam, for example, right? So this embedding. If you don't want to store this information, you can just remove it and then say object ID, blah, 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 blah here. And then you have another collection which stored the same information with the same object ID. So this referencing, okay, and earlier was embedding. Embedding, you store all the related data inside an object and put it in the parent document, I would say. And referencing means you don't store the whole object, you only store the reference to that data, like this. So that there are two ways to relate data in MongoDB. In SQL, you only have one way, which is referencing. But in MongoDB or NoSQL, you have two different ways to do it. That's why people hate it. You have two ways to do the same thing.
So SQL only has one way, which is embedding.
Referencing.
Oh, right.
Because row and table, you don't store object. Okay. And that's the difference between embedding and referencing. Today we will learn about referencing, but it's going to be the later half of the lecture. The first half will be about authentication. Okay. And I'm going to skip over this. Expect you guys spend 2 days on this already, right? So you would say, what the hell is authentication? Why is that? Can you explain it? Just guess. Yeah, all is correct. But in a simple way, restricting access, right? In a very simple way, you want to restrict access to the data, to the resource. Restrict means you limit that resource to a specific users, for example, for guests, for unauthenticated user, for example, not admin, not mod, for example, like that. And we also learn how to store and use credential. Credential here could be email, password, right? Or it can be a big PIN number, but we will talk about email and password only today. Also, we learn how to protect it, to protect the resource. Protect resource. For example, if the post or review post require a login user to see it, then we will check it until the user log in with their email and password. By then we will show it, else we don't show it. Or for another example, if you want to make a review, leave a review on a certain post, on a certain tour or certain event, you need to be logged in, for example, right? So those kind of stuff called authentications. So we will learn 3 things today on the first half. I mean, so basically it's just restricting access. to a specific resource. Why do we need it? I briefly talked about it, right? To protect resource from unauthorized user. Okay. Oh, there's a picture here. Oh, why is it cropped here? Okay, you can still see it anyway. So here's the flow for authentication. The whole flow you need to memorize. Not really. It's not really a flow. It's explanation about the authentication. The user here, there are many different type of user. A guest, for example, guest, or normal user, or moderator, or the owner of the products, for example, right? For example, here's an example of a e-commerce website. Okay, you have three different type users: a normal user who can buy stuff, guests who can see all the products, and the owners or the sellers who can post the products and manage the products, right? Three different type of user. For guests, you only see it. You cannot do these stuff. And for buyer, you can only place order. For seller, you can manage and create. So everything here, we go to the server, and the server will decide what you can do before you reach the database, right? So, and here's the flow. To do this, we need the authentication, and here's the authentication flow. Client would be your front-end app or your browser. It will send authentication data to the server. Oh, go away. And the server will validate that data. For example, we check your email and check your password. If it's correct, it will return a token. And that token will go to the client, for example, your React app or your browser. And every subsequent request, the client or the browser will use that token to communicate with the server. And the server will receive a token and decide you are logged in or not, which type user you are. So first step, you send username and password, or email and password, and then server return your key or token, and you will use that key to communicate with the server as a user, as a login user, as a authenticated user, right? And that token can be stored in storage. It can be local storage, it can be session storage, it can be cookies, anywhere on your browser. Another example, another illustration here. Oh my God. I cannot zoom it in. Oh, okay, here we go. Client go to our website, and it is served by the server. Client go to our website, and then the client wants to log in with username and password. Here we go, to server, and then server we validate the username and password. It will return a token, and that token will be stored on the front end. And then front end will send a token in every subsequent request. Basically, a request like, for example, send me my profile, send me all of the orders I have placed, or send me all of my items, for example, those kind of stuff. Okay. And today we will do the whole process using Postman and Node.js app, not app. Postman and Node app. We don't have any browser, don't worry. Our browser will be, our client will be Postman. I'm going to open Postman here. Right. So we have two things to worry about. Oh my. Sending the data, the credentials, and then generate the token. Check the token, check the password is correct or not, and then we send the token, generate token, and then send it back to the client, and then client will save it, right? So we have 1, 2, and 3 steps to handle. there's a couple of notes here. We will never store a raw password, right? Before we store the password, we will have to hash it, like encrypt it to something that a human cannot understand. And then we store a string, right? That's to protect user. Yeah. And that process will be like a one-way encrypted, meaning we can only encrypt a raw password into a hash string. We cannot do it backward. So that's how we protect user, even if our database is leaked, right? The hacker have the hash password, but they don't understand that they cannot get the raw password from the string. Okay, that's to protect our user. And there's a library to help us do that. Don't worry, it's not too complicated. Oh my God. Here we go. So basically we encrypt the password from a raw password, a raw string here. My password is password. I hash it, it becomes something unreadable and like cannot be understood here like this. And then we will store that string inside into our database. And then when we want to compare the two passwords, this password and this password, we will do something like this. Again, we will hash this again to something very similar to the one we store in the database, right? Kind of similar, but there's a little bit of difference. But using a method compare, which we use it, it will be available from the library. This will be equal to this. We compare this string with this string, and we receive a result true or false. Right? So that's how we check the password in the code. So here I explain the process. And then after we start the encrypt password, store it. Next time when the user log in, we compare the password. And then we issue a token, generate a token, return it to the client. So you may wonder what is that token? Basically, that token is just a JWT. We don't really have to use JWT, but it's very popular and depend on the usage that you have to use it in the future. In this lab, you don't really have to use it, but I still use it, so you understand how to use JWT. Okay. JWT is JSON Web Token. What it is actually, it's just a JSON data. JSON data is just a string plus a signature. Signature is something only like readable by your Node.js app. For example, you can have a secret key like this, super secret. Then you use this key to encrypt it or to decrypt it. It's kind of like a key, a passcode. You use passcode to decrypt the data, encrypt the data and decrypt the data. And even if we lose these data, it's for example, other people have the data, they cannot understand the value inside that. So JSON Web Token is comprised of 3 parts: the header, the payload, and the signature. As I say, signature is a secret key. The header is just, don't worry about it too much. It just kind of like the type of the JWT or the algorithm to encrypt it, to encode it or to decode it. The most important part is the payload, which is the data that we store. Okay. There are a couple of reasons why we use JWT, JSON Web Token. It's very compact, it's very lightweight, and it's like widely used in different language and framework. Basically, any languages use it. PHP, JavaScript, Golang, everything. Every framework, web framework use it. Can be used in every web framework. Right? And it's kind of like the safest way to do authentication over HTTP requests. It's also stateless. Basically, we don't have to store the token inside our database unless for some special reasons. We will talk about it as we understand more about security. But for now, just you can either store it or not storing it. But in today's lab, we're gonna store it. There are a couple of reasons, and we'll talk about it later if we have time, or we understand how the JWT works. Protecting rails. The last, as I mentioned before, we need to, I forgot, validate the credential, issue token, and then we protect the rails. Okay, we protect the rails by validating the tokens on every request. Basically, when the front end receives a token, in every subsequent request, the front end will attack that token inside the header. For example, I will show you how we do it. So for example, here in this request, I'm gonna create a new document, but this route require a user login, like a user, right? And then I will attack the token inside my headers like this, authorization here, as you can see, right? In your, when you were working with React app, you actually use it before. I guess, let me guess, the GitHub issues, right? You attack the authorization key inside your header, right? Very similar. And we're gonna do that. We learn how to do that for our app as well. Okay. And we will use a middleware, a router middleware to check the token. We don't do it in every single route. For example, if we have 10 routes, we don't have to do it 10 times. We just define the function once and we call it in those 10 routes, okay? By using middleware. Oh, too fast. Do I lose some page? Oh yeah, that's the whole point. Oh my God, my screen is so weird. Okay. Do you have any question? Even zoom out, zoom in. Oh my God. Sorry guys, technical issue. Okay. Look at this, so weird. Again, I'm gonna open a new tab. It looks so ugly. Please bear with it, please. Okay, do you have any questions? I'm gonna go over all of this in the lab, right? So the first part of today is about authentication. We will build the authentication part for our app for the weekly project. Right. You should have question about the logic here, the step here. Yeah. So let's forget about the small tribal things. Here, you need to remember the flow here. It's very important. Very important, the flow here. Client at first, when the client register an account, they will send username and password, right? Registering an account, email and password. And then the server will encrypt the password, save it to the database. And then the next time client want to log in, they will send the username or email together with the password to our server. Correct? That's how the normal app would behave. And then the server will receive username and password, for example. Then it will compare with the credential inside our database, right? But the server didn't store the raw password, so it will use a special method to compare the two strings. Okay? And if that password is correct, server will return the token, and that special token will be used as a key for the client to communicate with the server later on. So every subsequent request, the client will use the token as a key to talk with the server. And then the server will validate that token to decide whether or not to return the data that the client wants. Basically, that's it. The flow is very simple, but yeah, the flow is very simple. And that's how every single app works. No, most of the apps work. Right, cool. If you understand this flow, later on in the future, we can implement more feature. For example, we can log in with Facebook, we can log in with Google, anything. We still use the token to communicate with, from the front end, between the front end and the back end. So if you change the password, question from Anh Huy. Huy Anh or Anh Huy? Anh Huy. Oh, to Anh Huy, okay. If you change the password, does the server have to return a new token? Good question. There are a couple of discussion here. If you change the password, meaning you will have to revoke on the existing tokens, right? Meaning on the existing token will become invalid. There are two ways to do it. You can either in today's lab, we will learn one way to do it by storing on the tokens. And if you change the password, you will have to remove all the token inside your database. So then the next time user log in with that existing token, the token doesn't exist in our database, so we return false, meaning user cannot use the token anymore. There's another way. We don't have to store the token, but we store kind of like a version, a login version. And every time the user change the password, we change the version of that value, we change the value of that field. It's very, that way it's harder to visualize right now, but we will talk about it more. Right now, we store all the tokens in our database. And if the user log out, we remove that token. So that token will become invalid. Okay. And there are actually no right or wrong in using token or storing it or not storing it. There's pros and cons depending on our purpose. There's a huge debate on this topic. Right. Let me ask again. So this flow is very important. So we need to understand this. So how do we check if password is correct or not? No, how do we, no, Anh Huy. How to check password is correct or not when user log in? Anyone? Except you. Wow.
The database, the server has a hash, so we just compare the hash with the password, right?
Yeah, we compare the raw password with the hash password. Yeah. And it's gonna return true or false.
And then we issue the token.
Yes. So can you explain what step you have to do when user register an account? So when you register an account, create a new account.
So the database must create a new hash.
Yeah.
Raw password.
Yes, we receive, for example, email and password, raw email and password. Then we will encrypt that password, or we hash the password and store the password in our database, right? That's how we register an account. Also, we have to check if that email already exists in our database or that user already exists in our database as well. Something like that. And okay, when we log in, we compare the password. Hey, one more thing. How do we check the token valid or not?
We compare the token
There are two steps. First step, you use a tool from JSON Web Token to verify the token valid or not. Next step,
Wait, can you say that again? The first step is?
the first step is you're going to use a tool from the library JSON Web Token, JWT, to verify the token or not, to be valid or not. For example, if that token only survive in 7 days or 24 hours, if it's long before after that, then that token is invalid, right? So if the token is valid, then next step, you're going to check if that token does belong to the user, or that token exists in our database, something like that. So we have two steps. First, check if the token is valid or not. Second, check if the token belongs to that user or not. Okay. Or that token is inside our database or not. Two steps. So enough about the theory. Let's try to code, and by coding, you understand more. Okay. Let's take 5-minute break. So because we have to do two things today, authentication and referencing, that's why we need to speed things up a little bit. And in the afternoon, we still have one session about review. The controllers, controllers, and it's gonna be at 5 p.m. So if anyone wanna join, you're welcome. So let's take 5-minute break, maybe 7. Let's come back. And
It's just reviewing, right? It's not reviewing, right?
yeah, it's just reviewing. If you're confident in controllers, that's okay. You don't have to attend.
Just what the aftermath video.
Yeah.